Well, good morning. I have the extreme pleasure this morning of actually hosting an amazing panel. Before I introduce them, we do have one announcement. As you all know, in the events industry and when we're hosting events, everything is completely static. It's planned years in advance, and there's never a change to the schedule. So since we all know that that's not true, we do have one quick schedule update for you this afternoon, our 2 p.m. Immersive Experiences session with Libby Dover and Julie Hale. Unfortunately, we had to cancel that. We do have a speaker who is ill and won't be able to make it. So I just wanted to let you know that. So that'll be this afternoon. That one session will be canceled. There are 2 other sessions that you can go to. However, we do have 3 concurrent tracks running at the same time. All right, so I get the distinct pleasure of introducing this amazing panel. And to start off with, I'd like to bring up Bob Bejan, who is the Corporate Vice President of Events, Studio, and Marketing Community from Microsoft. We then have Andrew Bennett, who is the CMO at Smartsheet, who apparently has an cheering section. We have Jay Deutsch. He is the CEO and co-founder of BDA, as well as part owner of the Seattle Kraken. And then we also have Shauna, I'm gonna try really hard, Shauna Sumawang. I was close, right? She is the Vice President, Marketing and Community at HighSpot. Yay. So we're here to talk about the state of the events industry. And I want to get started this morning just real quick. I'm going to go down the line a little bit. If you all can just give a real quick, this is what our company does, this is how we use events. Each one of these businesses uses events very, very differently, and it's very uniquely. So Jay, I'm going to start with you because you're right here.
Good. Good morning, everybody.
Nice.
Let's try that again.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody.
There we go.
So I have a couple of different roles, but we produce merchandise around events, so we kind of bring the brands to life around it. We use events more on the B2B side, so smaller gatherings, high-touch profile VIP clients.
Perfect. Andrew.
Yes, morning everybody, nice to see you. I run marketing at Smartsheet. Smartsheet is a platform that people of all kinds use to do their work better. And we have a pretty wide-ranging event strategy that spans from fairly traditional field marketing events. We have some big sponsorships, or at least they're big sponsorships to us, with the McLaren Formula One racing team. And then I think there's a hockey team in town, right?
There is.
Yeah.
There might be.
And
There
so
is now, yes,
Yep.
and you're an amazing partner.
We do some work with the arena and with the Kraken, and we have some programs where we try to sort of tell the world more about what we stand for by using our platform to tell about people doing work that matters. So we give nonprofits access to our sponsorship benefits, and we do some great stuff with the Special Olympics also.
Nice. All right, Bob.
Morning, I'm Bob Bejan. I work for a small startup called Microsoft. We do a lot of events, big range, from big global events, anchor flagships, down to industry-leading events all over the world for the industries that we do business in, VIP events for kind of C-class executives, and then, of course, a bunch of internal events and about 1,400 hours of television programming a month.
Which is amazing. And I have to give him trouble a little bit. This, he gave me his title, which is abbreviated as CVP. And so I confirmed with him this morning that was, corporate vice president. And he said, well, that or cool. And as you can see, I'm pretty sure that's probably the more accurate title.
He's totally the coolest out here. Yes.
Correct. All right, Shauna.
Hi, everyone. I am the Vice President of Community and Customer Marketing, actually at a startup called HighSpot here in Seattle. We do sales enablement, and the way that we use events, we obviously have internal events like sales kickoffs. We also have external third-party events that we sponsor. However, my team actually does community, and so we focus on community-based first-party hosted events to bring our ecosystem together, both for the sales enablement industry as well as our customer ecosystem.
Perfect. And you and I actually had an interesting conversation the other day. You told me that you all have actually transitioned how you're approaching events where, before it was more of you were spending time at trade shows, exhibiting, things like that, but you've actually switched it where you're doing about an 80-20 split where you're actually hosting. And do you remember what you said to me as to why you were doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this year we have pivoted a little bit. We have moved, obviously, as many in B2B tech have, from growth at all costs to really kind of more strategic, efficient growth within our business. And one of the things that we wanted to do was reevaluate some of the investments that we make. One of those being an investment in more first-party hosted events, where we and our organization really have an opportunity to make sure that the right people are coming to the event instead of just kind of showing up and throwing up a booth at a trade show. We also have opportunities to do things like set the agenda and the narrative that we're talking about with those in our space. And so we've actually drastically shifted to about an 80-20 split to first-party hosted events that my team runs.
Yeah. And it was that controlling the narrative comment that I really, really liked when we were having that conversation. So let's talk about kind of, it's been an interesting few years, right? I can't believe we're at the point that we're saying few versus one or a couple at this point. The events industry obviously has changed a lot in the last couple of years. Things have changed in terms of how we run them, but expectations have changed as well, right? From attendee perspectives. So what do you all see as a opportunity in the events industry? Bob, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I mean, for us, the last 2.5 years, 3 years has been this extraordinary kind of innovation period, right? And a lot of discovery in the sense that I don't think we had any idea of the scale we were capable of reaching in the digital events world or how effective they could be. And I think now coming back where we're bringing back the in-person component, because humans like to be together, of course, we don't want to lose that scale. And so I think the opportunity for us is like, how do you create a truly interactive kind of experience that incorporates the people in the room with the people in the digital room in a way that's really compelling and not separated. And I think a lot in the industry now, there's a lot of people talking about, bifurcated events, you do hybrid and like doing 2 events. And I think the opportunity is to go, no, how do you bring all that audience together and create an experience that's truly different?
Correct. Yeah. And you mentioned the other day, community and building those relationships. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, first of all, when COVID hit, it was a bad day to be in the fan gathering business. And if you think about sports, just take it from there and then translate it to the meeting and trade shows. Imagine if you just watch sports only on TV. You still get a thrill, right? I mean, it's still a medium. But when you go to the game, and go to Climate Pledge, hopefully, and watch a great Kraken game. But it's a different experience. And so when you think about trade shows, you get a sense of community from that fandom that happens in a stadium. You'll get it on the show floor here, which is different than if you're just sitting in your computer and kind of multitasking like we do. We're professional jugglers. And you get a lot done in front of that screen, but when you're walking that show and you engage with somebody and you learn something new, there's an aspect to that I think becomes a community. And for this space, it's been a tough couple of years. And I think to put it back and to get those innovations, I love that word, those innovations back into it and kind of reimagine, it's going to take that kind of spark of community for people to talk about to get it back to where it's at. And I think it's on its way.
I agree. And we do have a virtual audience. So for those of you who are watching online, we appreciate you actually, getting in and spending time with your day, but it is a challenge, right? We're always trying to find ways of how do we incorporate these 2 audiences? How do we bring them together? And it really is a challenge. We can have a lot of fun here face to face. I mean, I got to do an interview in a hot air balloon yesterday. It was one of the coolest things I've ever done. Standing in a hot air balloon having this interview, but how do you bring that in when you're doing, working with the virtual audiences? Andrew, what other opportunities are you guys looking at right now, or what opportunities do you see?
Yeah, I think one point that I would continue on is that idea, Bob talks about, Jay talks about, fans. We have a really passionate customer base, And we absolutely had the experience. Obviously, Microsoft scale is unlike almost any company in the world, but we were able to reach a lot more people with our virtual events. However, the experience of getting a bunch of passionate people in one room, I don't believe can be replicated online, right? So you can get more scale in the virtual world. The vibe and the energy that you get from being together is such a huge opportunity. And I think that the fact that we had that taken away for a couple of years made us a lot more thoughtful about when we're actually going to deliver an in-person experience. What do we do to make it really, really impactful? Make sure that we're not just going through the motions. Make sure that people actually feel something, right? And so you take that idea of, I mentioned we have this sponsorship of the McLaren Formula One race car. A couple of times a year, we pick a nonprofit in a region where a race is run, and we give them our sponsorship. So we take our logo off the car, we put their logo on the car, we give them all the social coverage, and that was a really great benefit to these nonprofits to give them the exposure. But then what we learned is when we pair that with an actual in-person activation, right? So at the Austin race, we gave our platform over to the Hidden Genius Project, which does STEM education for young black men in Oakland and Detroit. We did an in-person activation where we brought local high school kids in. We had representatives from Splunk and from Google and from other partners. Lando Norris, F1 driver, showed up at the event, engaged with the kids. The kids got tours of the track, right? And so just that idea that like if we're gonna deliver something, how do we really, really go deep and have as much impact as we can?
Awesome.
Yep. And Shauna, I'm going to have you follow up because I know that community and your users are really important, and you do different events, whether it is general community or your very specific users. So I'm going to have you add into that conversation a little bit from your viewpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. So from a community perspective, we actually leverage our events very strategically to bring our community together. I think it's a really great opportunity for them to do things like build relationships, because I think that there is a face-to-face component that just adds so much more value to that. It is hard to build relationships in a digital world. I think it's based on common interest, which is one of the nice things about community that does tend to pull people with common interests together. But you also have to have shared experiences, and I think that's where events come in and play a really significant role. However, I also think that you have to, within those events, have activations that help you build trust and loyalty amongst those community members. And I think that that's absolutely critical, that those are foundational to building relationships. And I think that there's a lot of great opportunity if you think about your events as your community ecosystem.
Nice. All right, so what are some of the challenges you all see? I mean, I know we just talked about a few of them, but are there really any, beyond that community building, specific challenges that you see that we're facing right now, or even coming down the road? Things that we need to be aware of, things that we need to plan for, that we need to kind of start with. Andrew, you're smirking, so I'm gonna start with you.
T&E budgets?
Yeah, T&E budgets,
Yeah.
definitely.
I mean, it's a real thing, right? And it was interesting how as things opened up post-pandemic, we had a lot of people who were willing to travel, and then all of a sudden, couldn't get it funded. And when we think about, again, trying to deliver really impactful events, that can involve expensive travel. The events themselves can be, it can just be expensive for our customers to attend and to pull off. So, managing that balance of knowing that people want to be together and that they want to get a really significant experience, but knowing the reality that, T&E isn't what it was a few years ago.
And I think the other thing I think is a really interesting challenge is that human beings don't like change, right? And so coming out of the pandemic, there's a lot of talk in our industry about going back to the way things were, right? And people are going, isn't it great we're all out together and it's all awesome? And that's true. But one of the interesting things I think about the pandemic discovery for us was, hey, you know what? Of any given audience, only about 30% of your audience are the type of personality that want to go to events. And the scale we discovered in the digital world is like we got that other 70%. And so I think the challenge is how do you keep from falling back into all the old habits and hold on to that recognition that there's really a minority amount of any given audience you're trying to reach that are event goers, and you don't want to lose the rest of them. And it's hard because people really want to just go back to where they're comfortable.
Right. Shauna?
I'll change it up a little bit. I think one of the challenges that I see coming on the horizon for us in the event space is probably around data privacy, especially as we start to bring it into the online world a lot more. And the regulations become more and more strict and definitely change depending on the geography. I think it's becoming even more challenging for event professionals to figure out how we respect data privacy rights while also surfacing really personalized experiences to our event attendees.
That's a great point.
See, and I think that's the challenge. What you just heard was people want to do it a little differently, and that creativity that you use. And so whether it's a mix between in-person and virtual, then it's got to be VIP, something that somebody else isn't doing. So I say challenge status quo. And I think that's kind of what you're hearing up here of, okay, we did a reset. Now we're starting to come back in. Challenge status quo, don't fall right back into it. And I think everyone's looking for that little creative juice that makes their event a little different.
Yeah, expectations have changed. Data privacy is interesting, right? We have all these amazing technologies that are coming out that have AI and, different networking capabilities and all of those things. And I don't know how many companies I've had conversations with that I say, well, we're asking those questions of our attendees for us, right? Demographic-based information. You all probably answered some questions for us when you were registering, but sharing that information, right? The companies are like, oh, we want that, right? We want to use it for the AI matching. I'm like, no, we're not going to share that with everybody. And then the experiences, I think people are much, it's funny, at least from us, they're much less understanding when something happens tech-wise. Like, after 2.5 years being online, you guys should have this figured out, right? Tech happens, right? So the experiences and the expectations have changed, and now they want that extra thing, whether they're in person or they're online. So from a production standpoint, at least for us, it's a really interesting conversation that we have when we're talking with different companies.
Well, yeah, and not only are expectations high in terms of quality, but you got to do something differently to,
Exactly right.
to engage the audience, right? And so we did our sales kickoff this year. Was about 1,800 people, I think, all online. Our customer conference was in person, but our sales kickoff was online. And this year we went with the talk show format.
Nice.
We didn't have anybody standing on a stage giving a keynote. It was meant to be a little bit funny. I think we succeeded at times.
Right on.
In making it funny, but just the actual, the look of it was different from what people were used to seeing with taking a traditional event and just broadcasting it. And if you're not, we're all over Zoom, so if you're not doing something different, you're not going to engage the audience.
Yeah.
Right,
And faster.
Yeah.
You can't, the days of an hour and a half keynote are over.
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, and industry.
People won't tolerate it.
Different industries, right? We did a big conference with medical professionals. We decided to be really smart. Never do that in the event, in an event. We did all of their posters digitally, right? Smart thing to do, sustainable, all these great things. They were all mad because they couldn't physically walk up to the piece of paper on the, science backboard and look at it. So your industry expectations come in too, which kind of creates a little bit of a challenge as well.
Well, people love merch. That's a shameless plug. But
They do love merch, just in case you need to know that. I was giving him trouble earlier about merch. We'll talk about that here in a little bit too. But yeah, they do love their merch. They love all kinds of things. Uh-huh.
Canon.
And there's other challenges, right? Rising AV costs. It's happening. Be prepared for it. Short staff. What else? What other kind of things are we running into?
Labor is a mess.
Labor's a mess.
And I say it with absolute respect for everybody in the room that worked on the show, so I'm not trying to give anybody a hard time, but doing shows around the world coming out of the pandemic, labor has been off, and so it is not as sharp as it was. Load-ins take probably 40% longer than they should in pretty much every city that we've been in so far in the last 6 months. And it's a problem. I mean, you really have to change the way you think about load-ins and time and quality and checking the quality of work, where you really didn't have to do that very much.
Does that put the burden on your group? Does that put the burden on your group and everybody else's group?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, you got to watch it. It used to be, you could talk to a union foreman in New York and be rest assured that you were going to get quality labor on a build, but you can't. That's not a guarantee any longer.
No.
Well, and rates aren't going down.
Right.
Right.
No.
So 40% longer build out. And my CFO is telling me your budget's flat year over year.
It's tough.
Like, can't deliver the same experience.
Yeah, exactly right. Or even more, like your budget's the same year over year, 2022 to 2023, but now you got to do live events too.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
You got to do all the digital events and you got to do the in-person events for the same number. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, because you're producing, if it's a single event, it's still 2 events, right? They're just happening at the same time, and you have to have a budget to cover both of those because they have different needs. So it's a really unique, challenge. And staffing. I mean, short staff and trying to find enough people to work the event, and I mean, there's some real challenges there. So,
I think the role of the event management industry has also changed. We put a lot more burden on them to be almost TV producers at this point.
That's right.
To be able to do digital and in person, and so it's definitely diversifying your portfolio of experience, but it's changed radically in the last 3 years.
absolutely. All right, so let's go from kind of the negative part then, and let's look towards the future. So, what all do you guys see coming in the future? What are you excited about? Is there anything cool that your particular company is doing or planning for that you can share? I know you may not be able to share things, but what are you all looking forward to? What's coming down the pike?
Go ahead.
Thanks, Bob. These programs that we've been running with our sponsorship programs, to us have been really successful in terms of not just landing a brand impression, but conveying more meaning, right? Telling more about who we are and what we stand for. At Climate Pledge Arena, we worked with the team to do the first Indigenous art installation at Climate Pledge Arena. So a community of Northwest Coast artists, together with our support and the support of the arena, have this amazing interactive exhibit at the arena. And so we looked at the success that we've had with our sponsorships and are really thinking increasingly about, in all these activities related to brand and events, how do we use the platform to convey more meaning, right? To not just focus so much on eyeballs seeing the logo and really tell the world about who we are and what we stand for through our actions at these events.
Fantastic.
Nice.
I mean, I would say, like, it's the most exciting time to be in the events business ever. I mean, it really is. And I think, like, when I think about what we're doing now, for example, we're going to do a show here in May. We'll have 6,000 people here in this building. We'll have 200,000 people online. And we'll have 25 locations globally all activating at the same time.
It's amazing.
So, we'll have close to 400,000 people participating in this show over a 72-hour period. And so this combination of basically creating interactive television, what we now call the digital core, and then distributing the digital core to all of those locations. This will be home base. Everything will be live on the stage here. So the 6,000 people here will have a very special experience, of course. But I really do think we're going to create this interactive programming that is, we've been working on it for the last 3 years. But, it's incredibly exciting. And there is no limit to the innovation, in terms of, what's possible. You're really only limited by your imagination and your willingness to do the work.
Bob is an actual event rock star. The scale, the scale and complexity of what you're pulling off is incredible.
Great team, amazing team.
That's why he's a good leader. I would say you're hearing, okay, fast forward 5 years from now, what are you going to see? So I think some of you in this room are planners, and budgets are only going to go up from here. I know that temporarily it's tough, but I think the ability to reach your customer is not going anywhere, and the pressure to grow is not going anywhere. If you're re-entering this space as your business, I think this is a great baseline in which 5 years from now, you will grow your business tremendously. For sure. So I think there's a great opportunity of what's happening, because the reset is still trying to find where its footing is and go there. From my standpoint, BDA is a merchandise agency. So when you hear about the innovativeness and then you hear about that experience, I put out experiential marketing. So you could go, what a lot of our clients are saying is, yeah, I know that they were online. I don't know if they remembered. I don't know what they took from this. So we then have a deliverable of how to get their brand into their home or into their office or back into their lifestyle. And that's what merch kind of does. But how do you merch with a message? How do you tell the message with the merchandise? So there's one thing about putting out a great piece of merchandise that is core to your brand, but then does the merch and the delivery of the merchandise actually give the messaging that you're trying to portray? That's where the creative comes in play. So, you know, I think it's a really interesting time. 3 years from now, this room will be bigger, it will be larger, you'll have more exhibitors. So I think that, you know, it's an interesting time right now. If you're entering into this field, whether it be on the event management side or supplying services, make a mark.
And tell that story. I mean, it really is all about the story. Shauna.
Sure, I'll close out this question. When I think about the future of the events industry, I really do think that we're starting to think about things with a lot more intentionality. And from my perspective, I think that means that as event managers, a lot of the things that we're thinking about are DEI&B, making sure that we have diverse representation at our events, making sure that we're pulling in more voices from different perspectives. And I think that that representation really matters. And so making sure that we're applying that to everything that we do in the events industry as we go forward. I think we've learned a lot over the last couple of years with everything that's happened in society, and we're now starting to make sure that we're applying some of those learnings into the way that we design events. I think that there's a lot of other things on that front that we could roll in there as well. I think mindfulness around making sure that we're creating event spaces that are really designed for everyone. As Bob said, you know, only 30% of folks really do feel comfortable at events. I'm introverted. I'm probably not one of the 30%. But for events that are thoughtful about designing for people maybe that are a little bit more neurodivergent and how they learn, creating safe spaces for them. I think that's where I see a lot of us going in the event space, and I'm really proud of what we're doing.
If you're introverted, wow, that's incredible.
So I have a feeling that you're like me. I tell people all the time I'm an extroverted introvert, right? This is horrifying most times, but you'll never know it, right? I can totally pull it off, but at the end of the day, I'm exhausted, right?
yeah.
Because you put all the energy into it. So I didn't forewarn you guys about this question, so I'm just gonna throw surprises out there. If you had to give one piece of advice to this audience about what to do next, whether it's about their career, whether it's about hosting an event, whether it's about, you know, what would that one piece of advice be? I'm going to start with Bob.
I would say write a brief first and know what it is that you want to do. I think it's amazing to me how often event or experiential marketing endeavors begin like a movie without a script, right? And people start shooting and making before they really know who they want to speak to, what they want to say, what they want to do. And whether it's the next phase of your career or it's a global event, it's kind of, you got to have that brief of like, where do you want to go next? And what do you want? And that would be the advice I'd give.
Jay?
Mine's twofold. First is own it. Own it. Own what you're doing. I think that's a big thing of we are professional jugglers, but if you own those balls, then you're gonna perform. And the second thing is, and this sounds really kind of old school, but outwork somebody. I mean, own it and outwork somebody. I think that is gonna, if you're looking at where you wanna be in 3 to 5 years, right now that's what a lot of companies are looking for. They want someone who's gonna take the reins and own it, and then if you outwork somebody, you're gonna be somewhere.
Shauna?
As I mentioned earlier, I think event management folks have really been presented with a lot of opportunities to diversify your portfolio, your career portfolio, and so I think right now is a really great time to just become learn-it-alls, continue to invest in your own career development, learn the various elements that play into your role, and then find what you're passionate about. I think it is important to focus on the things that you're really good at and you're really passionate about, and also make sure that, again, you enjoy it, because we don't want folks burning out, and I think especially in the events industry, burnout is a very real thing when you're getting 2 hours of sleep the night before
Correct.
an event.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Just be mindful of that for yourself.
So you're saying don't go to the bar at 11:30.
Or maybe you do go to the bar.
Maybe you do.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Creativity and
There we
bar.
go.
Be done working by 11:30 and go to the bar, right? Absolutely.
Have it all.
Andrew?
Yeah, I guess I would say maybe it's kind of similar to Bob's comment, but I find that we learn when we go into anything with an expected outcome, and when we actually say what the outcome is, or what we expect to achieve. And I think it's particularly important in the events world because we're all so passionate about this, right? That if you do an event because you think you should, you're definitely going to look back on it and decide that it was successful, right? You had a great time, right? So be clear about what you're trying to achieve, and that could be any one of a giant number of outcomes. It could be number of attendees, it could be deals closed, it could be you got one headline in a local trade rag, it could be I got to meet Jay Deutsch. I mean, right? But like say in advance what you're trying to accomplish, run the play, then look back and ask yourself how you did, because that's how you really learn in a world like this one where there are so many moving parts and so much passion.
Well said.
Absolutely. So we're going to open this up for Q&A. I'm hoping that I'm going to have a mic here coming. Oh, I do have one. Perfect. Before we open it up for Q&A, though, I just want to say thank you. This has been an amazing conversation. It's been a great way to kick off this particular event. So can we say thank you to our panelists, please? All right. So we've got a few minutes, and I want you all to be able to take advantage of who's up here on stage. So if you have any questions, I do have my lovely daughter over here. You get to run. You get to get your exercise in today.
Hi, you guys. Thank you so much for being a part of this panel. Tony from Tech Event Pro here in Seattle. I am curious, with all of the labor shortages and knowing the industry, the training element inside of this industry is a huge gap. Can any of you speak to that and any kind of thoughts of how we can, as a community, really sink that in and bring the next generation?
It's a super insightful comment. And we were talking about it actually backstage before the show. You know, when you deal with unions like labor, any of the union shops for sure, 2.5 years of apprenticeship are lost, right? And the masters all retired during that 2.5 years. So the gap you're talking about, not only is it real, but where are the teachers too, and all these, the masters in all these crafts? And so it's a real problem. And what we're finding is that we're having to pick up the slack and do the training ourselves, right? So, and in some ways that's not so bad because you get to shape and mold the people in your, you know, the way you want them. But it takes a lot more energy.
Next. Anybody?
Yeah, anybody want to add?
Oh, up front.
Hi, I'm Victoria Bennington from the Meeting and Event Planners Guide. And my question to you guys is, you know, you guys all have massive companies, you're doing a lot of events. How are you locating your vendors? What are the steps that you're taking? Where are you looking? How are you finding your vendors?
I'm probably not very well equipped. I would ask Jeremy, my head of events, that question.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll take a shot at it and people should add, but look, it's difficult because most of the vendors that we were closest to are radically different or reconstituted in a very different way on the other side of the pandemic than they were. Some of them survived well and grew with us. So we took several vendors with us into the world that we transformed ourselves into the last 3 years, and those folks are stronger today than they were. And now it's about meeting and greeting and auditioning and doing a lot of the work that, you know, we didn't do, you know, in 2018 and 2019. Meeting a lot of new people, taking trips and meeting the agencies and getting to know and auditioning, really.
Yeah, I think, you know, first of all, when it comes to merchandise, there's this company called BDA that's amazing.
He never self-promotes, by the way.
You know, well, first of all, the two questions, you're going to get Kraken merchandise, so everyone asking a question gets some merch.
There you go.
But I'll say this. I think Bob hit it really well. There's been a shakeup. So take the time, call people in, sit them down, and have that honest dialogue. What do you need, and what can you do for me? And this is where I would say, you know, your partnership with your vendors And we're a vendor to most large companies, right? Your partnership with your vendor, and the more information you can give them, you'll get a better result.
Yep. All right, we have time for maybe one or two more questions, because then we have a little bit of a surprise here at the end too.
Hi, I have a quick question. I'm Nicole with Yakima Chief Hops, so not a event programming company, but we do our own events and we also are attendees. But we kind of mentioned everything's cost is going up, but my budgets are not. They were pretty stagnant, which is at least I didn't get cut. But what do you guys, when you're going to present to the powers that be that can write the checks of they still want the same expectations or higher, but my budget's not going up. How do you explain to them the costs and the changes and any insights on ideas on how to cut costs in the right ways versus the important ways? If that makes sense.
I can take a first stab at this one. So one of the things that I do with my leadership team is I literally show them the cost delta and very specific things like transportation costs have gone up radically, AV costs have gone up radically. And so when my executive team comes to me and they say that they want a huge plasma screen in the background, I'm like, okay, well, here's the cost. And so if we need additional budget for that, please do sign that check. However, I find you have to have very open and real conversations with your leadership team and show them the delta that we're seeing in the investment. I also find that we make trade-offs. We pull back on some things. We try to focus on the things that will help us actually be more thoughtful from a sustainability perspective, and we found that we've actually been able to find some cost-cutting measures in that way. Everything doesn't need to be printed except for maybe in some industries, and so we've found some savings in that way. Also using local vendors sometimes does do a reduction in some of the transportation costs, and those are just some of the things that we've done to address that.
Yeah, and we've definitely decided to do, even though we're growing pretty significantly year over year, we're doing fewer events. So we're basically picking the ones that we think are really, really significant. Our sales kickoff, our customer conference right here at the convention center, our sponsorship activations, and then there were a lot of other sort of smaller to kind of mid-tier events that we just decided we're gonna decide not to invest there so that we can make the things that we do invest in really matter.
And the last thing I'd add is like, don't forget, digital is much less expensive than in person. And so there are a bunch of things that we don't do in person now that we're going to continue to do digitally. And I think that's a totally acceptable thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, we do some hub and spoke kind of models as well. And I know your big event is similar to that, but where we will have kind of the different regional groups, right? So we have kind of the main house and that's where everybody is presenting from, but then we will do all of these different regional groups where they're interacting online, but they still have somebody who's there engaging with them on behalf of the program, and that works well, and it helps to cut costs too, instead of bringing everybody into one location. Paying for airfare, paying for hotels, all of those different things that happen. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. All right, I'm gonna take one last question because I saw somebody go in the back and he's not up front yet. Do we have one last one?
Hi there, I'm Jean Marie with Emerald City Advocates. I wanted to ask all of you, how do you approach and prepare for, in employees as well as events, your neurodiverse and your ADA attendees and employees? Do you look at a piece of paper and say, we need to do this for these people and this for these people, or do you get to know them?
I mean, I'll start. So when it comes to our large-scale events, we do a bunch of things. There's a baseline where we make everything completely accessible. So everything is translated into 26 languages. We do 80 American Sign Language, and all of it you could toggle on and off in any of the experiences. Everything obviously is totally accessible inside, and the D&I work that you were talking about earlier, of course we do. But we also add a accessibility concierge who literally calls and engages with every attendee that divulges that they have special needs during registration. So the ones we know that tell us that they have that there's something going on, we're making contact with them and making sure that they're getting what they need, in addition to the baseline accessibility that all of our events have.
Yeah, I spoke to it a little bit earlier. We also do baseline, maybe not quite as well as you guys do. I like the concierge idea, though. I might have to steal that for my next event. But it is being really thoughtful about making sure that we are baking that into the experiences around the event, making sure that there are spaces for people that maybe need to step away, making sure that we're designing the agenda so that there are longer breaks so that people have a chance to kind of decompress after maybe necessarily being around a lot of folks. And so there's just those small elements that you can weave into your event that do help people that come to events with different backgrounds and different needs.
Yeah, I would also add too that our internal employees are a really important audience, and we talk a lot in the comms space about the fact that in 2023 all comms are external comms, right? You're always talking to the world, and the same thing is true about events. Right, so you provide an experience to your employees that they're going to participate. They can often be a really great source of input. So we have employee resource groups for folks with, a really wide range of backgrounds that are also a really important source of input for us.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have anything other to add other than, do you want a buoy doll or do you want a tentacle?
Oh my gosh.
So, the number 1 and 2 sellers at the Kraken store. Thanks for the question, though. Appreciate it.
Doesn't matter what you say. When you're with the merch guy, you're totally upstaged.
So with that, we all learn different ways, right? We all retain information different ways. Some of us love to just sit and listen to, kind of the talking heads up on stage, right? But we have a little bit of a special treat here. I'm going to have Baba, right? Come up on the stage. He's going to give us, why don't you tell them what you're going to give us real quick?
Well, I am going to do a spontaneous rap summary of this entire panel that we just witnessed together right now. My name is Baba Brinkman. I'm originally from Vancouver, Canada, and now based in New York. And during the pandemic, I founded a creative agency called Event Rap, which only represents skilled 10-year veteran hip-hop artists because rappers are agile and good at last-minute stuff. So we come to events, write rhymes about the events, and create the executive summaries, which distill the key ideas. So here's a composition which is 1 hour old. Even I don't know what it says because there's no chance to even reread it, never mind rehearse it. But we're going to turn it into a concert. So let's see if we can get this beat. All right.
Come on, let's do it.
Make some noise, Northwest Event Show! Come on. It's the Northwest Event Show. Feel the crazy suspense. It's the kickoff, the first panel, the state of events. It's the pace of technology that makes it intense. But the Northwest Event Show will make it make sense. Cause it's all about the people, passionately sharing it, diverse and multifarious from many different areas. It's all about the connection and the human experience. So make some noise! Oh, thank you for cheering it. Thank you for your energy. Yeah, the industry needs that. The state of the events industry is, oh yeah, we back. My team brings the original event-specific raps, just like that logo. We put the Northwest on the map. So shout out to the music lovers, the crate diggers who discover. Shout to the recovering event specialists like Stuart Butler, right? Shout out, Stuart's leading by example. He's always hyping it up. If a VIP calls, Stuart's like, all right, I'll pick them up, because events are coming back to life. Yes, it's looking nice. Just ask the future Forbes cover model up here, Lisa Shook Tice, who executive produced this whole presentation. The only person this morning who got a standing ovation. And hey, events are coming back. The Kraken is with it. Jay Deutsch is making noise in the fan gathering business, which had some tough times way back in the pandemic. But the fans are coming back massive, because fans get it, right? What's going on here? Fans get it. It's all about that buzz, right? Those people in the building coming back to life one-to-one, y'all, and rebuilding from the community level. Bottom up is the new focus. The first party hosted events with Shauna Samoan, but the event sales, the enabling of HighSpot. HighSpot is a true startup, unlike Microsoft. But I get it. That's what Bob was talking about, because not every personality really wants to get out of the house. So how can we surface the personality types? Come on, use those big data analytic methods of Bob Bejan. Just don't forget about privacy. Track my personality, just please, Bob. Try not to knock on my door when I'm showering. That's a metaphor. See, I'm all for data privacy as long as the sales pitch is specific when you advertise to me, and that's a paradox. But we can beat doom and gloom, because it's all about you. It's about the people in the room at the Northwest Event Show. Feel the crazy suspense. That's the kickoff, the first panel, the state of events. It's the pace of technology that makes it intense. But the Northwest Event Show will make it make sense, because it's all about the people that are passionately sharing it, diverse and multifarious from many different areas. It's all about the connectivity and human experience. So make some noise! Thank you for cheering it. Thank you for making it amazing at every level. Every industry event is a magnet attracting rebels and is coming back to life big time. You can feel its heartbeat. Collaboration is the key. Ask Andrew Bennett from Smartsheet. Smartsheet can help with that labor shortage at events and get the delays way below 40%. Compared to pre-COVID, the age of isolation is over and we're about to witness this massive industry explosion. For instance, Bob is about to kick off an event that's massive. 400,000 people in this building, including interactive. Virtual participation is how you get it cracking. Bob, you can hit me up if your event needs some rapping. Listen to Shauna. Find your passion or it's not going to work out. Find your joy at every event. Prevent burnout. Pay attention to yourself. And when your energy is surging, finish working and then go to the bar at 11:30. During COVID, events were on thin ice. Now they're running right. The masters train the apprentices. They reach new heights. And Lisa Shook Tice is contributing her own family ties. She's even got her daughter running around with the mic. And the message is, hey, we're gonna be okay. Whatever the question, Jay's answer is BDA. Cause hey, we all have to self-promote and do what works. Jay's got all the buzzwords like people love merch. Yes, indeed. So get the merch. Yeah, get the memorabilia. Get the energy that you interact with people so that they're feeling you. Get the one-on-one connections. Get that oxytocin. That's the way that we're gonna rock and knock this industry open. Yo, check it out. I'm trying to hypnotize. I don't have anything written down anymore. This is improvised. Why? Check it out. I'm just doing this. This is my stuff. Cause y'all know events all about that time crunch. But yo, Northwest Event Show. Feel the crazy suspense. It's the kickoff, the first panel, the state of events. It's the pace of technology that makes it intense. But the Northwest Event Show will make it make sense. Cause it's all about the people that are passionately sharing it. Diverse and multifarious from many different areas. It's all about the connection and the human experience. So one more time, make some noise! Thank you for cheering it. Welcome back, Event Show. I'm Bubba Brinkman. We'll be around. Me and my man Zeps from Event Rap will be here rapping every panel, every booth, everything where you give us a mic, we'll rap about it. So tap us on the shoulder if you want us to rap your thing. We're all about it. Thank you guys. Have a great convention. Thank you.
All right. So with that, if I can have there we go. With that, the exhibit floor is open. We have 2 levels of exhibits, so please be sure that you visit everybody, interact with them, engage, network with each other. We also have our breakout sessions coming up at 11 o'clock. We have back-to-back sessions on the innovation stage today and tomorrow, so get out there, go interact with people, network with people, and last but not least, thank you to this amazing panel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have
a
fun
great
today,
show,
everybody.
Have a great show,
Have fun.
everyone.
Take care.
Thank you so much. Great.